Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Michael, and basically going to speak to you a little bit on how we want to take SD-WAN to the next level. So I think most of us in the room here have already deployed SD-WAN, or at least in some process of deploying SD-WAN. We probably have some customers. Maybe you have some a good number of customers, or maybe just a few. But I think the theme that is really apparent now is that we are starting to go beyond the hype of SD-WAN into realizing the realities and what are the real challenges of taking SD-WAN to scale and making it deliver on the promises. And the first thing I actually want to talk to you about is some of these challenges, right? So I want to highlight the major themes that we see among our customers that are trying to take SD-WAN to scale and take it to the next level. So the first thing is zero touch. All SD-WAN vendors are promising zero touch, right? But in reality, it's zero touch up to the CPE deployment, right? But then after that, it's not really zero touch, right? There is still a lot of manual configuration that needs to be done, integration to other systems, underlay automation, and so on. So there is a level of zero touch, and it's a huge improvement on what we used to have with MPLS and other technologies. But still, it's not what it's been promised to be. It's not really zero touch, right? So we want to increase the automation. There is this need to increase the automation. And the thing is, it's a must to increase the automation, because if today you have a few hundred sites or a few hundred customers, you can manage a bit of things manually. But if you start to go really, and you want to really scale and go to the next level in your SD-WAN deployment, you need to increase automation. You need automation to be across the board in the entire life cycle of the service, right? The second thing is multi-vendor. I think we can all relate that most of our customers make sometimes emotional decisions about their selection. Some of them, although there is a perfectly good SD-WAN solution that ticks every box in their RFP, they still want that vendor that they grew up with. Let's call it this way. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge because as a service provider, it's just not easy to go with a single vendor strategy in SD-WAN if you want to capture the market. If you want to be competitive, if you want to make sure that you don't lose that customer who prefers vendor X or Y or Z. And from another perspective, not all SD-WAN vendors are created equal. Some of them are targeting a certain price point. Others are coming at a much lower price point, and you want to have the flexibility actually to offer that into the market. The third thing is value-added services. Again, some SD-WAN vendors bring value-added services, security, WAN acceleration, right? And some of them don't. And in other cases, again, back to customer preference, you might go to a customer, and while the SD-WAN solution might have a perfectly fine security solution, they have a certain standard, and they want this security vendor in the solution or that security vendor in the solution to comply to this regulation or to their security team standards, and so on and so forth, right? So being able to have value-added services that are flexible and decoupled from the SD-WAN solution, and to present you an opportunity to grow more into the IT budget of your enterprise customer, capture more of their IT budget, is also a key capability that we see that is we're not there yet, right? It's still missing. And the last thing is, if you want to introduce a solution that has a multi-vendor aspect and maybe value-added services again from a multi-vendor, the vendor-specific UIs are not suitable for that. Also, most of these vendor-specific UIs again, designed for a certain target audience. Sometimes it's too complex, and sometimes it's too simple. And it basically doesn't create the right digital experience for your end customer. It sometimes creates a disjoint experience, basically, when compared to other services that they might be using from you as a service provider, or from other solutions that they might be using. So we want to be able to bridge that gap and provide a UI that gives a bit of differentiation and allows you to expand your customer base. So how do we do that? So we think that the right approach is to introduce a level of orchestration, service orchestration specifically, right, to orchestrate an SD-WAN vendor. And that allows us to automate the service provisioning and full life cycle. So not just zero touch at the deployment of the CPE, but zero touch all the way from deploying the CPE, changing the configuration on the CPE, and even decommissioning and removing that CPE completely, or moving the customer to a completely new location, and this kind of thing. So full life cycle management automation, not just the installation or start point. So you want the service orchestration, of course, to be cloud native, to support modern modeling languages like Yang, and to have open APIs. And actually, this is something that we've been working extensively on with MEF, for example. So we've worked extensively with MEF on their Presto specs, and we're trying to advance that forward. And what Presto tries to do is to standardize an interface between SD-WAN controllers and service orchestration, so that this integration and lifecycle management between service orchestration and multiple SD-WAN vendors is simplified, is, I dare say, out of the box capability that you can implement quickly and take your multi-vendor strategy to market as fast as possible, as opposed to having a custom API implementation for every SD-WAN vendor, which, by the way, is what tends to happen today. But also, service orchestration should help you simplify the northbound integrations to your existing OSS BSS systems. Because in the end, if you want to monetize SD-WAN, you must be able to integrate it to your order management, to your product catalog, to your billing, to all of these, your fault and performance management, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're going to go multi-vendor and you're going to go integrate every single SD-WAN vendor to these respective systems, it's a huge effort and exercise to do that. And what service orchestration allows is to use standard APIs like TMF to talk to these systems that already actually understand these APIs and abstract the complexity of the specific APIs of every SD-WAN vendor. Last but not least, you also want an API that enables you to use your own self-service portal or a unified self-service portal to abstract the capabilities of every SD-WAN vendor and provide your customer with a unified experience. So the customer that is using vendor A in your environment shouldn't feel any difference if you have to migrate them to a service from vendor B for some reason or the other, right? So we're also working with MEF on that aspect with their Legato LSO, and it's a way for us to basically say that there has to be an abstracted and standardized set of capabilities that can be exposed externally, that you can integrate into your existing portals and interfaces towards the customer, and the customer doesn't have to get this jagging or jarring move between, for example, your existing portal, B2B portal that they use to manage the whatever other services that they are buying from you, and then jump into the SD-WAN management and find a completely different experience there. So in that regard, we are actually working as we speak with MEF and sponsored by NTT-Com on a PUC for multi-vendor SD-WAN. And the results of this PUC will be available next month, mid-November, in the MEF event in Los Angeles. And basically, the PUC is all about proving that Presto and Legato are workable solutions. We have the support from a few SD-WAN vendors, and a UCPE from Adva, Versa, and Silver Peak. And the idea here is to configure the same set of capabilities of an SD-WAN vendor for multiple customers on different types of CPEs, UCPE or a dedicated SD-WAN CPE, and it's all through the same service model, the same API, and the same user interface, right? So this POC is currently running with a high degree of success, and if you are interested, as I said, next month in Los Angeles, the results will be made public. So next, I want to highlight that it's not just about SD-WAN. So the automation needs to go further steps. So one of the promises of SD-WAN is the ability of the customers to, for example, use MPLS and broadband as two options for their connectivity, right? And maybe move some critical traffic to MPLS and some traffic to broadband, or use MPLS as an underlay to keep certain SLA, or migrate from MPLS. But at the moment, the process flows of automating MPLS are completely disjoint from SD-WAN, and it's if you are in the process of getting this kind of hybrid setup with an SD-WAN customer, or you are migrating a customer gradually from an all MPLS environment to SD-WAN, it's a highly disjointed process. So you have a completely different flow for provisioning the SD-WAN and a completely separate flow for MPLS. And we believe that this is not the right way going forward. There should be domain orchestration that is capable to handle the MPLS access part from the PE downwards, for example, and that is part of the end-to-end service definition of SD-WAN that says, okay, if that SD-WAN service requires any interaction with MPLS, whether it's for hybrid or for underlay or for actually migration, that also should be part of the automation flow. And again, the purpose of this is to be able to scale, right? So the orchestration for MPLS, while sharing many components, maybe with SD-WAN orchestration, will require a little bit different approach. Because you need to have some kind of an active inventory that is able to understand in real time what's happening in your MPLS network. Of course, modern configuration management with modern modeling, not just the classical templating, right? You also need to have some fault and performance management to understand what's going on the MPLS and how it affects the upper layer of SD-WAN if it's overlaid on top of it, right? And to the ability, as I said, to automate across both of them, the SD-WAN and the MPLS equally, if the customer, because if you have a customer with a few thousand sites, you're not going to migrate them to SD-WAN overnight, right? It's going to be a gradual migration in batches. So the customer will probably need to coexist with SD-WAN and MPLS for a period of time. And during that period of time, you need to be able to give them some kind of uniformity in the service levels that they're getting, and how they access their applications from the different locations, whether they are SD-WAN or MPLS enabled, right? And then I want to address the value-added services. So value-added services are probably going to be in the form of VNFs, right? Or maybe CNFs in the near future. And you want to be able to have some NFV orchestration, right? And that NFV orchestration should be able to equally orchestrate a centralized value-added service that is data center based, or a UCPE value-added service that is going to be sitting next to the SD-WAN service on the customer side, right? And again, it has to be an orchestration that enables you the freedom to choose your value-added services and support them equally, whether it's security, DDoS, WAN acceleration, you name it, right? And ideally, it should also be able to do, again, both, right? You don't need to have two orchestration platforms, one for the universal CPE and one for the data center. Ideally, it should be the same, so that the work that you do in designing and onboarding these VNFs doesn't have to be repeated, right? So you could capitalize on the effort done here and there. And it should also take care of the end-to-end network service, how it looks like, right? But in the end, the customer experience should be the main driver, right? And the feedback that we are hearing from most of our service provider customers, hearing back from their enterprise customers, that this is one of the biggest challenges that they see in adoption of SD-WAN, is that the user experience is just still not there yet. There is too much complexity. And the example I want to mention here is our customer, TELUS, right? So they basically had this issue launching with an SD-WAN vendor where the feedback they got from all their large enterprise customers and trying to go down a little bit into the SMB is that the interface is just too complex for them to manage, right? And we worked with them on bringing an abstraction layer that is both service orchestration and a UI layer, a self-service portal that simplified that, that experience and gave the customers a more familiar and easy way to manage the SD-WAN service. But if we go back to the VAS, the digital experience should also, you should also think about expanding it to a digital marketplace where you couple SD-WAN with the value-added services that I mentioned, like security and so on, but maybe also try to capture a little bit more from your customer's IT budget by bundling stuff like Office 365 or any these IT applications, and that kind of digital marketplace is the, I would say, cherry on top of SD-WAN, because if the customer starts to move into this kind of digital experience, then it's much easier for them to start consuming more, right? Buying more from you, because it becomes a much easier thing to handle if you have the right experience on top. The example that we worked with on that is Telefónica Mexico, where they basically not only decided to take the orchestration, the portal, and the marketplace from us, they also decided to outsource it completely. So this is, in Telefónica Mexico's case, they are running this completely as a service out of Netcracker's cloud. And they were able to basically offer a bunch of services, SD-WAN with security, and a bunch of IT applications out of that marketplace to their market. And they've been relatively successful doing that. So if you don't want to go on building all of that internally and you want to get a head start on the SD-WAN market, maybe we can help you with that regard by looking at Netcracker Business Cloud. So in summary, I think if we want to take SD-WAN to the next level and try to go to the next scale, actually, and go after your existing and non-existing or new customers and scale beyond the limited number of customers that you might have today, the first thing is automation, automation, automation. We need to go and increase the level of automation in SD-WAN, and that will enable us to scale to the thousands and hundreds of thousands of CPEs and sites. You also want to think about growing your revenue by introducing value-added services from network functions or IT applications on top of your SD-WAN offering, and you need to be able to do that in a way that gives a unified experience to your end customers. And then in the end, that unified experience should also be a differentiated experience, so the customer should know that they are getting a service from you and not from vendor X or Y or Z, and that creates stickiness and creates more opportunity for you to expand and grow your business with that customer. That's it for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if there are any questions.
We actually over time a bit, so
okay,
we will not be able to take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.